Hi everybody. So I've never done this before. I figured I'll try it today just because I want to rant about something, and I was thinking like, where am I going to rant? But I have a YouTube channel about China. I can rant here because it's about China. So I'm going to read this to you since I'm live and I can't. I'm not savvy enough to figure out how to share my screen. I was just looking at a Facebook group that I'm a part of called Foreigners in Beijing, which is always, if you're in China, these foreigner groups are just great entertainment. So anyway, this is from a guy named Bill, who is apparently from Indonesia. I'm going to read this verbatim, and then I'm going to give you some advice about why you probably shouldn't make the same stupid mistake that Bill made. Hi, people. I want to ask if there's someone here who got the bank account freeze by the police. Can we share? I've got wired money from my friend, and suddenly the next day my bank account has been freeze, and I call the bank, and they said it was the police in Guilin who froze my money. And I call the police in Guilin, and they said that the money wired to my account is fraud scam money and freeze it for 6 months, can extend when it's necessary. Just curious why the sender is not freeze, but mine freeze. On the day my friend wired to me, I also transferred to my supplier, and my supplier said his bank account is not freeze though. Anyone have the same problem with me? Sorry, I'm not mocking his English. I am a little bit, but it's shocking. So a friend wired him money. How much money? I'm willing to bet it was a lot. And of course, there's always experts in China who've got to throw in a silly comment. So someone put in here, "Good luck getting your money, LOL. The government has control of everything in China. If they don't want to give it you back, you ain't getting it." And so why this like sort of drove me nuts, and I wrote a long response, which I'll to this guy, hoping to make him feel silly, but also at the same time, China's like every other country. You can't do business without a license. I started a business when I was in my 20s in the United States in Boston, and I went to a government agency and created a LLC, limited liability corporation. And it cost me, $50 or $100 to do it at the time. I can't remember what. And I opened a bank account with that business. And I did all this because I was starting a business, and you need to have a license to do business. And so, in the past, China's sort of been pretty lax about a lot of this. And certainly people use their WeChat accounts and use their bank accounts to move fairly large amounts of money without a problem. And certainly I have done so in the past. I used to work for a company, and for various reasons, the salary went to my wife's bank account, and I used to pull money out of that bank account, large amounts of cash, 20, 30,000 RMB at a time, and transfer that money into my account. Right. Nothing ever happened. That's a large amount of money for an individual to be doing in a single transfer, but it's well under the radar of the Chinese government. And so for a guy to get his bank account frozen because he received a wire transfer, I don't know if this wire transfer came from out of the country or if it came from within the country. It had to have been a large amount of money that let the police know that there's business going on here. And the fact that he mentions there's a supplier involved obviously tells us he's doing business in China with no license. And so my rant here is, if you live in China or you're planning on living in China and you want to start a business, whether that business is selling coffee on the side of the road or whether that business is engaging in trade and sales, like every other civilized place in the world, you need a license. You need a business license. And there's really two different ways of going about that. One is you can, if you're a foreigner, you can create what's called a wufi, or a wholly owned foreign entity, right? So you create a business that is completely owned by a foreign concern within China. There are laws for that. You're going to need a lawyer to do it. It's going to cost you lots of money so you can own your own business within China. I don't know how to do that. I know the company that I work for in China is a Wolfie. And I know that we hired a big expensive law firm, and we have a huge human resources firm that does business for us, and it's all legal and on the up and up. And it was a lot of red tape. And our Wolfie is essentially a mailbox. It's we don't have a lot of employees in China. We don't have a big physical plant here in China, but we do business in China. We transfer money, and lots of money, back and forth between America and China, and we pay taxes, right? But that's if you're thinking of like, hey, I want to open a bar, or I want to open a shop, or I want to sell shit on Taobao in China while I'm here. I'm going to ship things from overseas, and I'm going to sell them online here in China. If that's your brainchild, that's wonderful. China is a great place to do that. But unless you're going to have you can't do that with your private bank account. You can't, sell a bunch of product to somebody overseas from China and then get a huge wire transfer from overseas into your bank account. And like, oh, that's it. I put it in my personal Bank of China account that I opened up when I moved to China. The idea that somebody would think that's okay to do and then be shocked when that million RMB transaction gets flagged by the local authorities because maybe someone hasn't paid tax on it. It's laughable to think that this is a country like this. In a lot of ways, China is the Wild West from a capitalist standpoint. There's a lot you can do here under the radar, and people do it all the time. There's a lot of ways to make a fortune here, but at the same time, there's also, and especially in the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a real push by the government to make sure that they're getting their taxes. They just reformed the entire personal income tax system here in China in the last 2 years for everybody in the country to make sure that people aren't cheating on their taxes as much as they were before. Because Chinese people will always find a way, as my wife often says, to get money and to not pay taxes, right? And to avoid it in any way. They'll find a way around the laws. So China's gotten very serious about that, rightly so. And you cannot, under any circumstances, think that you can run a business that's going to be in any way profitable through the moving of money back and forth between bank accounts without being flagged by the government. So what do you do if you don't want to start a Wolfie and you're a foreigner living in China? Well, you should probably have a Chinese business partner that you're really good friends with, or a wife like I do, who you trust implicitly to help you, and they can start a business. I had a Chinese business partner, and we wanted to start a consulting business, and it was a very simple matter. It didn't cost a lot of money for my wife and my Chinese business partner to go together and create a company that didn't involve me at all. And that's really easy to do. And so that's the easiest, obvious solution. And most of my foreign friends who live in China who have a business, whether it be a store, I know someone who owns a comic book store, which is problematic, but he gets away with it. And I have a friend who owns a bar, runs a bar. I have actually lots of friends who own restaurants and bars. And the way they typically do it is there's a silent Chinese business partner or a spouse in many cases who is the Chinese face of that business, and they handle creating a business and paying taxes on it and making sure they consult a lawyer if they need to. But like, just the idea that there's these people living in China, whether they're here on tourist visas or work visas or student visas, and think like, I could just start a company, and there's got to be no regulations for that. Like, there's a ton of regulations. The other thing that's interesting is the idea that like China is somehow stricter than other countries. It's not, again, unless you're trying to open a foreign-owned company. It's very easy to start a company in China and to do that. So just, again, a couple of points there to mention to folks. I love this post. It just cracked me up. I'm looking to see if anybody's responded to it yet. No, nobody has, except to like it. So that's all I got to say. Just venting. Don't do anything stupid. Like have we're talking about money transferred into your account. I don't know what the high end is that you should avoid. I mean, over 100,000 RMB being transferred into your account in one blow is probably not a good idea. And that's not even a lot of money, really, 100,000 RMB. I would say 200, 300, 400, half a million. That is definitely, if that is coming in or going out of your account, somebody's watching. And just to put it in perspective, in the United States, the FDIC will receive a report of any transaction over $10,000. So unless you're like big communist China, Big Brother looking at you, since like the 1970s, any transaction of $10,000, which would be 70,000, 70,000 RMB, right, is tracked by the United States government. There's a record of it, and the IRS is going to be wondering where that money came from if you get it into your bank account, and what kind of business you're doing. So, yeah, see ya.